Hi, I'm Gaia.
I'm Angelica.
Today we're speaking to Charles, 24-year-old founder of aviation tech platform Interjet. Hi, Charles.
How are you doing?
Thank you for coming today.
No, thank you for having me on.
So please tell us, what is Enterjet?
So Enterjet is actually the first platform in private aviation that connects private flights directly to vetted private aircraft. So traditionally, it's been a marketplace whereby you've seen brokers involved in a very traditional format.
Okay.
But with Enterjet, it basically cuts out the need for a broker and connects the two parties directly.
How did this broker format initially function?
So fundamentally, and I know all too well about this subject because I was one for many years.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Many
and
years
actually-
at 24.
Yeah, exactly. No, I tell you.
Subtle dig. Come on, we're training in.
So I actually started off at 17.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
cool.
So my first brokerage deal was the back of a classroom.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So I started off at school, and I used to get these email newsletters sent to me by these private jet operators, and they would be the sort of empty legs, which are the aircraft flying empty from one place to another to pick up passengers.
Okay.
And so I used to get these newsletters come through on email, and they would list the route and the price. And I decided one day just set up on Instagram, list the route and the price, but add on whatever I wanted to add on, because it's a totally unregulated market at the time. So you could do whatever you wanted to do, which is why there's a lot of interesting characters in it as well.
Right.
And I literally set up an Instagram. No one else was doing it at the time. I set up an Instagram and started listing these sort of flight deals of one-way empty legs on this page. And I had about £210 in my bank account at the time. I spent £100 on adverts. And day one, we got our first sale. And when I say we, I mean I in the back of a classroom,
That's
literally.
so
Kind of wrong
impressive.
industry, seriously.
No, I mean, we should make up our game.
Unfortunately, you realize as you scale a business, it becomes a very different story. But
Yeah.
when you're on your own at 17, you think, wow, I'm going to be a billionaire by next week at this rate,
No,
right?
seriously.
But it was a case whereby, the model of brokerage and private aviation is very similar to what you would expect it to be in other industries. It simply is you as an end user flyer or you as an end user corporate or whatever it might be, coming forward to a broker to say, we need to go from here to here on this day at this time. Here's how many of us are going to be flying. And from there, it's really a case where they'll go out to the market and they'll find the relevant aircraft operators. And what do we mean by aircraft operators? They're companies that manage private aircraft on behalf of the owners. So they're trying to gain revenue for those owners through chartering the aircraft when they're not using them.
So what are all the different components in this? Because I used to do consulting for a private aviation company called Solaris when we were building their website and their brand and everything.
Yeah.
And they partnered with like a private caterer, a private chauffeur, all these different things, so that they'd offer a whole package.
Yeah.
Where does that come in?
So brokers traditionally are quite lazy individuals when you look at it, right? So the brokers tend not to deal with the nitty-gritty of the operation of each flight, and that might be catering. Sometimes they'll get involved in the vehicle transfer side of things. But generally, a broker's position is to say, right, we've got everything involved for the flight itself for you as a customer. Here's what the net total is going to be. And then if there's a case of, crazy catering or whatever it might be, someone wants, 5 tins of Beluga caviar placed on board,
Imagine.
whatever.
I can imagine that.
Then sure, they can arrange it. But it'll be a case whereby that's actually pressed onto the aircraft operator
Fine.
to organize.
Is that, do you have, because obviously like Airbnb, say, they came out with the whole experience concept.
Yeah.
Do you have plans of moving forward, expanding the platform and adding different services as part of what you offer?
So I'm very much one where I always say to people, we're not a car boot sell when it comes to the services we provide. We're very much professionals when it comes to private aviation. That's actually a result of the fact that, and the way that I got into all of this was because fundamentally before I was in the brokerage space, I essentially was an end user within the space. Okay, so I saw it from a client side before coming into the market and could understand the nuances and could understand exactly what a client was kind of missing from that user experience. Obviously at a very young age, which I was fortunate to be able to see before actually coming in. As you start to grow as a business, you of course start to see there's a lot of different overlaps of where your product and other products can come in. I'm a very firm believer that partnering with the best is the optimal way of then serving that customer, as opposed to trying to build out those service additions yourself. So to give you an idea, we now work with a white-labeled concierge, essentially, for our customer base, whereby essentially now if you need a hotel, if you need a house, if you need a boat, whatever it might be, of course you can come and advise us that that's what you're looking for, but you'll be directed straight onto the relevant team, as opposed to our own team attempting to sort of...
In-house,
Sort it out.
So your plan is very much to keep it within the aviation space, and you wouldn't want to like branch out into luxury on a broader spectrum.
Luxury on a broader spectrum. The thing that you have is there's so many people who are connoisseurs of exactly what they're
whatever
offering.
it is, right.
So it's very difficult, especially now you see a real trend towards specialisation. People are now getting fed up from a customer side of dealing with people who are generalists.
True.
They would rather deal with a specialist. That even goes down to clothes shopping these days. They'd rather not go to the same place to buy everything. They know where they want to buy their cashmere and their trousers and their socks and all this sort of stuff, and it's different places, right? And it's the same when it comes to the service side. If you're looking to get a private aircraft charter, great, you come to Interjet. If you're looking to get a yacht charter,
you go elsewhere.
You might be, you might have your person.
I think we should speak about the growth with Enterjet. When did it start? What's your year on year been like? And where are you thinking the next 5 years are going to go?
Yeah, so Interjet really took birth in 2023.
Okay.
During
Okay, so
COVID.
relatively recent.
It's
Was that
pretty
during
recent.
COVID?
No.
Just post-COVID.
Feels like
Years after
So it was
Okay.
it's tail of COVID, the private aviation market really started to pick up.
yeah, everyone wanted to travel.
Exactly. And there were obviously limited ways you could do it. So it really started to boom. Off the back of that, we actually started with the traditional brokerage to move into very niche areas within the market. So royal and government flight, all these sorts of, let's say, under the radar ways of doing it. As we did that, we realized we were leaving the traditional market behind, as in the sort of what are known as gravy runs of London, Nice, and things like that for a family of four. And Enterjet was the perfect product to give those individuals in order to actually be able to transact in a more seamless way when they already knew what they wanted. When you're dealing with the government, when you're dealing with the Royal Flight Department, whatever it might be, a lot of nuanced elements on each trip. When it comes to a guy based near Oxford who flies to Nice to go on his boat every weekend, he knows exactly what he wants. And so he doesn't need a broker, he can just deal direct. And that's really what we built it for. Yeah, so if you're that guy in Oxford, I'll take it back a little bit further. Fundamentally, Enterjet, when it was born in 2023, we did a very soft launch to start with, just post-summer. We didn't want to launch it right in the peak of things because from an aircraft operator perspective, it's a nightmare. From where we stand, of course, our product really is the aircraft operators.
Yeah.
They are dealing in a marketplace, essentially, in a way whereby we need them to be very much on the ball in order to serve the customer. Okay, we essentially are working as a payment processing platform to some degree in what we do with Interjet, as opposed to actually anything else, right? When you see it that way, you realize, okay, you've really got to have your suppliers on the ball, knowing exactly how to operate the software, how to be transacting with the customer in there. And doing that right at the peak is never going to be a good idea. So we did it just afterwards so that they had a little bit of relaxed time, and then we were able to put it forward. And we did the first 6 months through to the first quarter of 2024 really as a bit of a soft launch where it was invited members, exactly, test what's right, what's wrong, what features are desired, both operator and client side. And then as we moved into Q2 24, we actually started developing the product on a B2B side as well. So now our largest bookers are actually travel advisors, travel professionals, booking on behalf of their customers. That extends not just to travel concierges, but also to hotel groups, yacht charter brokers, all these sorts of things.
Or big corporates, clients.
We do have a few, exactly.
When you say we, Is
Yeah.
that
Thinking
in the
the same,
initial
yeah.
stages, was that literally just you, or did you have, a partner in crime from the beginning as
So
co-founder-ish kind of type? Although you aren't a co-founder, you are the solo founder.
when it comes to the we, it is now a we. Fundamentally now, it's a lean business. There's no need for a lot of people in what we do. To start with, of course, when it was just me in a bedroom at 17, you always say we to
to
boost
make it
yourself
flesh
a
it
little
out.
Super
bit.
fair,
Exactly.
super
Make it a bit dense.
But I'm glad to say that after a few years of trading, you do get to a point at which it is a we. No, now we have a great team. So we have a team of client care guys who are fundamentally looking after the customers, not so much in terms of handling each booking individually and dealing with the nuances of each flight, but they're looking after the customer in terms of booking process.
Right.
So, if you've got a customer that doesn't quite know how they want to pay or something like that, that's what that
Customer
team's there
experience,
for.
yeah.
Exactly. You have the same on the operator side. So we have a dedicated team on the supplier side, and then we have B2B sales guys, B2C sales guys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The largest portion of our business is really actually marketing.
You're not the first founder to say
Yeah.
that.
So beyond really the nitty gritty of the back end and the development team and sort of the payment side in terms of working, because for us, a lot of it has been working with different payment processes to ensure that it's a very slick flow for the customer. And what do I mean by payment processes? Literally the back end guys that are handling the card payments.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, when you're in the travel space, it's really difficult because traditionally you have a long lead time between the payment being accepted and the service being rendered. And so you have to create a workaround for that to make sure that you can actually process efficiently without having any risk of having your account shut down, 3 days in and then finding, I've got a large payment that is currently being held in a reserve by a place that I can't get it out of for 180
Right.
days, which has happened historically.
That's a nightmare.
So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. You've got to be really careful in what we do in that regard. Luckily, we've got a great setup, and we've worked with a lot of different suppliers to make that happen. But marketing really is the element that is using up most of my time, certainly. I'm working with our creative director, Hugo, to make sure that we're able to really push in the right markets, but in the right way as well.
Right.
So how do you market? What are your strategies?
Well, that's a broad question, but I can sort of hone it down. So you have a lot of different customers within private aviation, right? So if we look at it, let's segment it. So B2B side,
Sure.
marketing is a very different tone to what it is on the B2C side. You've got different channels, you've got different ways that people are going to resonate, and you've got a different benefit to the user. So on a B2B side, it's a very different way of reaching your customer to the B2C side. From a B2B side, you're looking at different channels, you're looking at different methods of reaching that customer that's going to resonate with them. So you're looking at really sort of basic things. You're looking at, okay, how am I getting to the right people at the best possible price point? A lot of that's in person.
Yeah.
Okay, so whether it's hosting dinners in different cities where there's going to be a really strong network of good travel advisors, whether that's literally just setting up a meeting, finding out an email, doing whatever you can to get through the door with a hotel group or whatever it might be. One of the earlier and larger travel advisors that we onboarded was as a result of being on an online seminar with a prominent hotel group that we worked with, and they had as a guest speaker at the seminar the head of a US-based
On the ground sales.
and it really was a case of, ping an email afterwards because it's listed in the sort of webinar. Ping an email afterwards. So that was really interesting. You spoke about product at the end. What can we do to work together? And then conversations flow off the back of that. Now, it's not marketing how we know it. It's not putting billboards up. But it really is, because of the size of that market being quite small, taking the tactics whereby it's taking down every single wall as they come, as opposed to attempting to blanket.
So it's more sales rather than like brand awareness.
Correct.
Yeah.
When it comes to what we would call marketing on a more general scale, of course, you have these different elements. You can do LinkedIn adverts and things like that. But on a B2B side, that's quite a hard push. B2C, different story. We work with a lot of brand ambassadors. And how do we pick those brand ambassadors? Well, it's pretty simple. We look at brands where our customer base are already shopping.
Yeah.
We look at their brand ambassadors and we work out what's the best way that we can get through to these sorts of people.
Main platforms, Instagram, TikTok.
Instagram's the real heavy hitter for us. The reason that I like Instagram, and maybe I'm a bit old school in comparison to people talking about TikTok and things like this now, for our brand, it's quite a refined feel to the brand, it's quite a modern feel to the brand, and it's a very set way of looking at the market. For me, Instagram is the platform that has that sort of real creator tone to it.
It feels less scrappy.
Where
TikTok
is exactly. It feels a little more
creative.
refined. It feels more creative. Exactly. So it's one of those things whereby our ambassadors, we care really what they're like on Instagram, not so much what they're looking like on other platforms. And so we work with a series of individuals, both male and female, because actually, although the industry is very male-led from a client side, we're starting to see that change a lot. And in reality, we're actually one of the first brands to really try and experiment with the push of getting more towards the female side.
So what does that look like, that push?
So realistically, it's working with brand ambassadors who are women that we feel women aspire to be like or they resonate with in some way, shape or form. Very much lifestyle, fashion led, but also professional led, right? We're not just looking at people who are saying, you know, here's my handbag collection. We're looking at people who are saying, you know, I'm an early 30s, hardworking, you know, female entrepreneur, and this is what I've managed to achieve. And you know, what you tend to find with everything is, as unique as we all feel we are, there's always, you know, a million versions of us out there somewhere. There might not be a million versions, but there'll be a few of us.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing about social media. You find your niche and it's your community.
Exactly that. And so what we found is that actually there's an incredible network of very successful, very young females, whereby they almost have, in my opinion, a great eye for exactly what we're doing that maybe is missed with other segments of the market. And that's really the driving force to us is, okay, do we feel as though that customer resonates with us as a brand and they resonate with our product as well? So it's one of those things whereby that segment has been really interesting. We've seen our female membership grow massively. Traditionally, brokers look at somewhere between a 5 and a 10% audience being female. We have now 25%.
Okay.
So it's vast in comparison.
What age range, more or less?
So our average age is 33 years old.
Oh,
it's
that's
really young.
That's very young.
Okay, so traditional brokers, you know, that would be 60 plus.
Yeah.
So we've got a really young average age.
Okay. And would you say that you push for younger demographics?
We push for younger demographic, which is as a result of the fact that you've currently got that boomer wealth transfer incoming. And so we're not sitting on the fence of, you know, and don't get me wrong, we love our older audience as well.
You're looking forward.
But we're looking forward. We're looking at who's going to be our
generators.
long-term customer base. In exactly the same way that I know Pictet do a lot of events for the second generation of their customers. We do exactly the same, right? Because you have to look ahead in this sort of business and figure out, okay, not only is this group of individuals going to have wealth, but they're also going to resonate with the idea of technology in that spend pattern moving forward. You see there's a vast change in terms of the way that customers are starting to use private aircraft as well.
So what is that change?
Well, traditionally you've seen, let's say, this sort of golden era of private aviation where you've seen sort of crisp white linen and sipping champagne and all this sort of stuff. Now that's gone. You know, it's not gone totally, but it's certainly phasing out.
The formality of it.
As the second generation, third generation come through. and you have the millennials, you have the Gen Z guys coming through, and they don't care about sipping champagne on an aircraft and wearing this and wearing that. They're wearing a white. They're wearing a t-shirt. They're wearing a hoodie. They're wearing whatever. They get to the airport 5 minutes in advance. Okay, they don't really care about what's going on around the plane. They're just using it for efficiency.
They just want good Wi-Fi.
Very practical.
Exactly, good Wi-Fi and
comfy seats.
True, Wi-Fi is important.
Exactly.
In terms of regions, what would you say is the biggest market for you? UK, I would imagine.
So the platform itself, region-wise, is pretty specific. So our main service area is Europe as we know it. We also do a little bit of work in the Middle East. That's starting to grow. And we're heading to the US as well for the domestic market there.
So earlier when you said that the market is quite small, do you think you can outgrow it at some point, or do you think that's not going to be an issue just because you can expand geographically? So
from a stance of where does private aviation sit? So you have about 500,000 private flights a year in Europe.
Okay.
You have about 2 million private flights a year in the US. There's slightly old stats, but it's around that sort of number. When you look at what percentage of those are charter, you can look at somewhere between 40 and 50% of those being charter. That's not to say every single one is somebody chartering over. That could well be a few of those are empty flights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the base of those flights is charter. There's also a lot of different ways that you can approach general aviation, private aviation as we know it, because you also have things like medical evacuation flights and things like this, which people don't really think about. You think of private jets and you think to yourself, this crisp luxury.
Yeah.
And what it can actually also be is somebody's insurance company paying for them to come back from their break in the south of France, and unfortunately on their break in the south of France they broke their leg, and so then they're being brought home to have surgery or something like that, and a commercial flight isn't an option at that stage. So there's a lot of different elements along the way like that, whereby it might not be the consumer or the audience's first thought, but those sorts of things are going on in the background. For us, the US is a great market, and South America is a great market as well.
Why is that?
The US is
South America,
brilliant market.
I thought that. Why is that?
So there is a lot of wealth there, isn't there?
There's a lot of wealth. The thing that you find in South America, which is really interesting, is there's a lot of private aircraft. Brazil is particularly interesting. Now, the reality with all of these service areas, as we like to call them, is you need local partners, okay? We can expand very, very quickly to make the platform able to work within a service area. It's as simple as a language change in some regions, a currency setup or something along those lines. But we need the product. And what's the product? It's the private aircraft. So we need the local operators. And what we do in each service region is we work with a local partner to then introduce us to the highest tier of private aircraft operators within that service region. We're not just going out, throwing things up against the wall and seeing what sticks. It's very much a case of an angled attack into each market to make sure we're really upholding our values that we work to within Europe. Because for us, we still need to do the job of a broker in making sure that the aircraft itself is of a very good quality, and more importantly, or equally importantly, the team operating that aircraft are of the very best quality. Because if you get it wrong, it can be very, very, very detrimental.
Yeah, reputation is important in these markets.
Is your business not a regulation and compliance nightmare?
From a brokerage perspective, there is no regulation whatsoever. The formation of charter brokerage as we know it today was a result of two Wall Street traders getting kicked off Wall Street. They looked at their contacts book and they thought, what industry can we go into which is totally unregulated, high commissions, and it'll use our current contacts book. And they
That's so
private
interesting.
aviation
So all
charter.
the regulation is on the
on the
product
operators.
side, on the
Yeah.
operator side. So as long as you trust that operator is, that's the perfect
Do you
niche.
see that ever changing or no?
What we're trying to do is bring self-regulation into the market.
What does self-regulation
I
mean?
was about to say.
The self-regulation
That's a
sounds to
fancy
me,
term.
yeah, it sounds to me as if we make the rule book and then follow it.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. What we're trying to do through Interjet, so to give you one of the problems of no regulation in a market, is straight away pricing. Okay, so if I'm a traditional broker, I wake up one morning, I'm feeling poor, I'm going to charge my customer more commission than I would normally charge, and then if I'm feeling wealthy and generous, I'm going to charge them less. Okay, that's the way that the market's always worked.
Right.
And so what happens is you have customers shopping between brokers because they're trying to find what's the true market rate. If I tell one broker that I've got the aircraft at this rate, and I tell another broker that I've got it at this rate, they're going to slowly chip away at their own commission until I reach the true market rate, and they're going to do the trip for free in order to win my business so that I give them the next trip, right? The way in which we work is we have a very, very, very low, comparatively, fixed transaction fee. So we've not got some kind of, floating commission that we make up on the day. We have a circa 4% transaction fee. That transaction fee is totally fixed. Whether it's £5,000, £50,000, doesn't matter, it's fixed. And it's slightly less than 4%, in fact. Most brokers work between, at minimum, 7 or 8%, all the way up to 20, 30, 40%. Okay? And they
40% is mental.
they decide that when they are putting the quote together as to what they're going to be charging the customer. So let's say cost price £5,000, £10,000. Let's say it's £10,000 to make the numbers easy. I could say, well, let's just charge £12,500. That's the way that a traditional broker works. And they might say, actually, lunch today is going to cost me another £150, so let's add on another £170, because then that's £150 in the tax. That's the way that it's worked. And so what we're doing is actually allowing customers to finally realize what's true market rates here. Because the other problem you've always had is, let's say you've got a selection of options that are all pretty similar from a price perspective, and then one option that's way, way, way cheaper. Well, the brokers have always just brought that far cheaper option up to sort of what the standard market rates are for the trip, so that the customer is none the wiser as to the fact that it was a lot cheaper, and they're making a lot more money off it.
So do you think your customer is looking at you and thinking, these guys are honest, they're being truthful with their prices, I'm going to stay loyal to them?
Yeah, the key for us is transparency, right? You're told who's operating the aircraft, you're told the exact market rate, okay? You've got everything laid out in front of you. There's nothing from our side that we could do to be more transparent than we are already. For a broker that's working traditionally, very different story. They're trying to hide as much information as is humanly possible in order to make sure that they can win the deal. And then once the transaction's occurred, they might feed a little more information, who the operator is, things like that. But fundamentally, the traditional market doesn't have enough transparency to it, and that's what the sort of self-regulation side is. Beyond that, the element of self-regulation that you then try and bring in is also operator quality, right? It's saying, we're only going to work with you if you are of a certain standard. And so we're super picky, right? We look at aircraft age, we look at refits, we look at all these things. We even have aesthetic requirements, okay?
That's good.
Because
You'd fly.
well, the thing is this, right? The problem that you've got in the market is always the only piece of information I have before I spend my £50,000 on a charter are some tiny photos that I've been sent through on a PDF or something like that. And this is traditionally. And then it might say something like floating fleet next to it. So I have no idea whether the photos I'm seeing are actually the aircraft I'm getting.
Yeah.
I then rock up to the airport and I think, this thing's seen better days. With what we do, we inspect every single aircraft before we upload it onto the platform. And we make sure that every single aircraft has the standard of aesthetic that we believe is required when you're spending this level of money, right? And so every single time a customer rocks up, they go, oh, wow, beautifully presented aircraft. And it hits the mark every single time. That's not something that anybody else is doing. And so by making sure we can uphold those standards, you find yourself in the rare position whereby actually your retention is incredibly strong. And people aren't shopping around because you've hit all of the factors that they were desiring. Every time they rock up, they've got a nice aircraft. They feel as though they're getting the fairest price in the market. And they feel as though they're being fed every piece of information possible before they're actually parting ways with their money.
In terms of transparency, do you feel like Gen Z and these younger generations, do you feel like they have different values and that they approach the sale differently?
So when you look at it from a perspective of the younger audience coming through. They're very savvy, okay? And I think the other thing that you find is, as a result of the fact that for a lot of our customers, they're coming from, very prominent backgrounds on all sorts of different levels. And I think there's also an element of pride to getting a good deal for them, okay? And so they like to shop around. They like to work out what's the best deal. Can I sort of cut these guys out and go direct to source? That's the sort of way that people are working. Not everybody, by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what we tend to see as this element of, I really want to get the best deal possible. And as a result of that, you have to give them everything up front so that they feel as though, well, there wouldn't be any point in working around. And the reality is, with the contracts we have with our suppliers as well, they'll just send the customer straight back to us and say, if you want to book this aircraft, book it through them. And it really is that simple. And that's because, from an aircraft operator's perspective, it's easier for them to have us host the transaction than it is to do the transaction themselves. They're used to working with aviation professionals, not necessarily with direct end consumers, and they like the support network that we've built through our customer care teams to make sure that we can truly create a polished feel for both customer and operator with every single transaction that we host.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Charles, for your time.
You.
That was awesome.